Welcome to Cyber Ahead with AI, the podcast where we explore how AI is transforming cybersecurity, strategy to execution, and what's really working for today's teams and leaders. I'm your host, Parth Shah. Each episode, I sit down with founders, CISOs, and innovators who are pushing the boundaries of security and technology. Today, I'm joined by Craig Taylor, CEO of CyberHoot, the security awareness platform built for MSPs and SMBs that swaps gotcha phishing for positive automated training that actually changes behavior. We'll dig into how autopilot reduces admin time, why hootfish takes a coaching first approach, and what KPIs Craig watches to prove that habits are sticking, from click rates to real world incidents. If you ever wrestled with low completion rates or tool sprawl, this one's for you. Craig, thanks for joining.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me today, Parth. I really enjoy being here.
Appreciate you taking the time, Craig. Would you mind walking our audience through your background and what you're up to now?
Sure. So to know my background, I've been doing cybersecurity for 25 years plus, closer to 30 actually. I have my CISSP for 25 years as of 2001. So we're coming up on that anniversary. And you need 5 years of experience to get it, to sit for the exam, which, oh my gosh, that was such a difficult exam. But going back before that, even to like time immoral, there was a psychology degree, 30 plus years ago. And in that degree, I learned about operant conditioning, behavior change models, how you can teach different modalities of people, how people learn. I have had a lifelong love affair with education. So, my sort of summation of my experience is my psychology on top of my love of education, married with 25 years of cybersecurity experience to build a platform that actually changes behaviors in the real world.
That's a fascinating background. And I love how you've taken these different learnings and studies and started to apply it at what you're doing right now, which is CyberHoot. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about CyberHoot?
Sure. We're trying to teach cyber literacy to the world. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you're an individual, we give it away free under cyberhoot.com/individuals. So anyone listening to this that wants to get a leg up on the latest trends in cybersecurity, the threats, the attacks, the methodologies hackers are using, go register for free. And you get our hootfish exercises, our videos, and you get to bootstrap your cyber literacy skills for free forever. We have no duration limits on that. Our hope would be, of course, that if you really like it, you bring it to your IT team, to your business, to your MSP, that sort of thing. But that's a secondary point. We teach cyber literacy skills to anyone that runs a computer today, because let's face it, you can graduate from any Ivy League school, any university, even any high school, and have computer literacy, which is very clearly the ability to operate a mouse and a calendar and email and type on a computer keyboard. But can you do it safely and securely and fight off the threats and the attacks that we all face daily? The answer is no, because you haven't had a single modicum of cyber literacy training. What is phishing? What is cyber social engineering? Why do passwords matter so much in today's world that we live in? All of that is part of your cyber literacy skills that, at the end of the day, people think of it as alchemy and all this complicated neuroscience stuff. None of that is true. Cyber literacy is this much knowledge that we can teach you and this much common sense. Combining those two things, you can be pretty proactive in your own security and know what to do on a daily basis when you're facing these threats and attacks. But without it, cybersecurity is this one thing I love to say: we don't know what we don't know in the realm of cybersecurity. And that's what bites us in the butt, right? We want to have that little modicum of knowledge combined with some common sense, and you can get a lot of protection that way.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think probably for all of our listeners and, in their lifetimes, they went from not understanding what the hell cybersecurity was to actually being impacted. Everyone gets those spam calls. Everyone gets those spam emails. Everyone has heard of a story of some older person getting exploited.
Mm-hmm.
And You're right that now everyone is getting attacked all the time. And to your point, it's a little bit of literacy goes a long way. And I know you mentioned a couple things. You talked about phishing, about passwords. Would you mind just giving a quick 1 minute on like what each of those are from like your perspective, since I feel like
Sure.
you've been teaching this really well.
Yeah. Well, let's start with phishing because that's the number one way companies are hacked. And, when you go back and you look at the literature of breaches that occur, and there's lots of research done around breaches and where they source from, 80 to 90% of them are tied back to a human being making a mistake. And that's typically them clicking on a link in an email they shouldn't click on. That's the prototypical default phishing attack where some vendor sends you an email threatening that your Netflix account is overdue and they're going to turn it off, right? What does that have in that email? Well, it's urgent because, oh my God, I can't watch my favorite binge show tonight when I finish work. It's urgency to go and fix the problem. And those two things combined, emotionality and urgency, get people to react and click to go fix it, right? I have 2 minutes before my next meeting. Let me just pay the bill so I can watch, my Game of Thrones tonight or whatever it is. That is phishing. It's social engineering delivered in a medium of email. Now, you can have quishing, a QR code that sends your payment credit card details when you go to pay for parking at some parking lot somewhere in the world to a hacker, not to the vendor of choice, because the hackers put a QR code sticker on the meter side. And you scan that with your phone, and suddenly you're paying a lookalike website for parking. You're going to get a ticket when you come out. If your car's still there, it might be towed, and you've given your credit card details to a hacker. Quishing, QR code phishing. It's essentially social engineering delivered in a QR code. How many of us listening to this, you don't have to, no one's going to put up their hand, but have gotten the SMS text, your toll violation is doubling every week until you pay it? We've all got them dozens of times. There are essentially sweatshops all over the world where hacker organizations, organized crime have collected people, many times against their will, to send out SMS messages in SIM farms where they can target United States or Canadian or anybody in the world with these text messages to pay their toll violations before they double. And people fall for it to the tune of billions of dollars a year. That's delivering over SMS or smishing. So these are each phishing attack. Phishing, smishing, vishing, and quishing. Vishing, I didn't mention, is over the phone. They call you up and they say, I'm Microsoft. We found a virus on your computer. We can help you fix it before it causes more damage. Let's click this link so I can get into your computer and help you out. All of those are just different variants of social engineering delivered in different modalities, phone and so on. So does that help?
That is such a good explanation. And it's true. It's gotten bad. There's organized crime. Countries like Myanmar and so many other countries have these sweatshops. And it's scary to think that their only focus is, hey, we just need less than 0.1% to fall for it, for
That's
them
right.
to. And gone are the days of the email from the Nigerian prince.
That's right. It's
Now with
much more.
AI, please go ahead.
I was going to say it's much more of the Beekeeper movie. If you ever had a chance, if
Love
anyone
that
listening
movie.
to this wants to know how this really kind of works and the damage it can do to the elderly and even young people are falling for this. I don't want that book, that movie portrays an old elderly woman who mortgages her future, all of her finances in her nonprofit to a hacker by accident because of these farms that exist to socially engineer people out of their retirement savings and things of that nature. But it happens to anyone. The core message here, and I want this to be really clearly understood by your listeners, is anyone and everyone is being breached by cybercrime today. Cybercrime and the reporting of it is almost identical or maybe even worse than mental health. How many people do you know have mental health issues or admit or tell you about them? It is a stigma in society that people don't talk about mental health. They don't report it. They don't say, hey, I'm depressed, I'm suffering, I'm angry, I have anger management, I have all these different issues. It's out there. But society doesn't tolerate the discussion or the disclosure of those things. And cyber crimes are no different. So you might hear about elderly people being taken advantage of because it's become public knowledge. But there are as many or more younger adults, middle-aged adults, businesses, small, medium, large, that are breached every day. We do know this fact. Cybercrime represented the third largest economy in the world last year. So think about that. The United States has $28-30 trillion economy. I actually have to look that number up. Then China has some percentage of that, say 70% of that. Then cybercrime comes in at $10-12 trillion in ill-begotten profit from ransomware, business email compromise, wire fraud, all that begin with phishing emails, password hygiene issues, that sort of thing.
I do want to double click on something very important that you said for the listeners. I read about that too. The cybercrime being the third largest economy, just for relative reference, like there's US, it's more than Germany and Japan's GDP combined.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
And let me put a further exclamation point. Like, I only ever use one exclamation point. I have a real problem with the double, triple exclamation points at the end of a sentence, but here's two more
You know what's
exclamation
funny?
points.
I have to interrupt. My wife gets mad at me because when she used to text me like that, I once had to tell her, "Can you stop doing that? It sounds like you're yelling in my ears." And she's never used exclamations with me ever again. It's been 15 years since.
I
Anyways,
love
I
it.
have to share that, but please, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's made my day. I love that. So my co-founder, I hope he listens to this because he likes the triple exclamation mark. But the reality is this. If it's true that cybercrime goes unreported in the majority of cases, then the statistics that we're talking about the third largest economy of the world, are the top of the iceberg above the waterline.
Wow.
There's even more cybercrime happening that never gets reported.
Hmm.
And there's no way to calculate it. But if it's truly like an iceberg where, 1/3 of the size of the iceberg is above the water and 2/3 are below, or maybe it's 3/4 or 4/5, I don't know. There's a hell of a lot more cybercrime not being reported than what we learn about. So can I say with authority that the $12 trillion figure doesn't include some estimation of that? I don't know. I can't say. But I do know it's probably 10 to 100 times more prevalent than what we read about in the news each day, right? For every Range Rover that got $1 billion bailout last week because their flat network, shame on them for having a flat network, was hit with ransomware. Everything is encrypted. They can't function. They can't produce cars. They can't do anything. And they're rebuilding their infrastructure from scratch. For every one of those, there's probably 1,000 to 10,000 smaller businesses that are out $5, $10, $20, $100,000. So it's a real rampant problem. And by the way, this is an AI podcast, right? AI is only making it faster, cheaper, easier, and more effective than ever before. I get asked this question sometimes, Parth, is AI changing the way hackers hack? And the answer is yes, but not the way you think. It's the same attacks that they're doing. They're just doing them more quickly with better attack methodologies. There's no obvious spelling mistakes. There's no obvious grammatical errors. They're doing it with an idea of, hey, I can go look at Parth's social media account. I could go look at his top 5 favorite pastimes, and I can send him 5 spear phishing emails that touch on each one of those passions in his life so that he has a much higher likelihood of wanting to click on it. And if he hasn't been properly trained, he will click. And that one click can reach into your computer, steal your session token because you're reading this email in an email, you're authenticated to your email. Suddenly your email session token is handed over to the hacker and they're in your email. If you're logged in on another screen or another browser tab to your bank, they get that session token. They could get any session tokens that you want from that one click with Evil Proxy and some of these advanced hacking tools that are out there. The message here is you have to educate yourself to protect yourself from these common attacks that AI are making more impactful. When they successfully breach a company, the results are more damaging. There's more ways that they extort us. Let's talk about extortion for a moment. Do you mind if I go down this rabbit hole for a moment? 10 years ago, you get a hit with encryption ransomware that encrypts your data, and you say, I don't care. I got really good backups over here. Let me restore my data. I'm back up and running. No harm, no ransomware payment. Give the finger to the hackers because we beat you. Well, today, they don't do that. They get in your network, they don't encrypt right away. They find your backups, they delete them. Secondly, they exfiltrate your critical and sensitive data so that if you don't pay the ransom to recover your backups, to recover your data, some companies decide we're not paying the ransom. You may have heard Salesforce did this recently in their breach. We're not going to pay. That's okay. It's not Salesforce privileged data. It's all their business clients' data in their Salesforce, environments. But the hackers will then threaten, first, by deleting your backup so you can't recover the data. Second, they'll threaten to release it online. So that's called double extortion. The first is, give me the keys to decrypt my data and get it back, and then we're good. The second is, if you refuse that, we'll release your customer records. Can you imagine a law firm and the decisions that are sealed in the courts that are suddenly made public because hackers broke in and stole that data? That would kill any law firm or any accounting or any tax firm. Oh, but there's a third extortion that we're hearing about now. A firm in New York State recently said, no, we're not going to pay. We don't care that we lost our data, and you can release the information to the internet. I don't care. Well, then the hackers said, well, you know what? Let's do a triple extortion on you. We're going to report you to the FTC, and they're going to fine you $500,000, $1 million for not reporting this breach, which is the law in New York State, that you have to report any breaches of customer data in that state. And so they had this threat of not only paying a ransom to get their data back or not paying it and letting it be released online, but also getting fined by the FTC because they didn't report it. They were trying to keep the lid on it, right? Let's contain this. There is a fourth version of extortion that I have come across recently, but it's so disruptive and it's so dangerous that I won't even talk about it on podcasts. But there's another form of extortion that's going on that shocked me, and I'm not easily shocked, Parth, but it has to do with hackers attempting a fourth method. And my God, it's just a Wild West out there. I'll tell you offline, but it's not a good situation for any company to be in.
It is a crazy world we live in, and it's only getting worse. I think you touched on so many good points there, but you know, gone are the days where you see grammatical errors or formatting issues. Now, to get a full carbon copy of a website is one prompt away.
Mm-hmm.
It's that easy. And if you think AI is making you productive, think about what it's doing to the attackers.
Yeah, it is. And yes, I did have a caveat that AI is helping hackers hack in new ways. They are building AI tools now that can write the malware packages for you novelly so that they're not identified by traditional antivirus or EDR solutions. They're using AI to translate perfect English from whatever source country the hackers are from, where English might not be the first language. And so you're getting emails that have been crafted by someone in a remote part of the world that are like the way your colleague across town talks to you in an email from a vendor. So they're very difficult to distinguish. There are still hallmarks, and that's what we teach in hootfish, is that hackers can't generally email you or impersonate a vendor from the actual vendor's domain name. That's the sender of the message. There's usually, not always, there are very specific, times when a vendor's email account has been breached because they clicked on something and the hacker got into their email. Then they're sending legitimate emails that are indistinguishable from the user themselves to inboxes around the world. That's business email compromise. Those are very hard to identify. If they're asking you to do something unusual, that's when you pick up the phone and you go cross-reference or call the original person from a known good phone number to say, hey, Parth, did you really mean to send me an invoice today? Because we've never had invoices come from you to me before. So I'm not going to open this until you tell me why, right? That does happen. But the majority of phishing attacks today come from a domain that has been typo squatted. What does that mean? The M in Microsoft or Amazon or any other vendor with the M in their name could be turned into an R and an N, which together look like an M. Or there might be a period in the wrong place. Or there might be an S on the end of the domain name. The hackers know that they have 2 to 3 weeks of sending emails from this typo squatted domain name they've registered in like backwater domain registrar in Timbuktu land, and it will be taken down within short order. But during that time, can you imagine if you got a bunch of emails from Microsoft's with an S on that .com? I mean, that might not happen, but it would be a vendor. Choose your favorite vendor, put an S on their name, and ask yourself, would my employees really be able to spot that with their current knowledge? And would they click on it, or would they click on it? So these are the things we're fighting at CyberHoot in our hootfish exercises, where we actually do the exact impersonation of domains that hackers will do, rather than what the industry as a whole does, the gotcha approach of sending fake email messages to the inboxes to see, do your employees know enough not to open and click on that link in that fake email? And then we go, gotcha, you failed the phishing test. Well, that doesn't work. And the domains you use in those types of tests are so dumbed down and simplified, oversimplified, as to teach the wrong rules to your employees. They come to think, oh, if it says my account resets are us is from Microsoft, that's clearly not that's not a domain name Microsoft uses. I'll delete that because I can easily tell. But the S on Microsoft or the S on salesforces.com or whatever it is, those are much more insidious and difficult to identify if you haven't been trained that way. That's what makes the difference between hootfish and fake email gotcha phishing. We put the S on Salesforces.
Thanks for sharing that. And I know we're talking about a lot of the doom and gloom, but the truth is, a little bit of literacy goes such a long way. It's
Yes.
as bad as all of this sounds that we talked about, and these are all real stories. The truth is, a little bit of education solves the problem. And I'd love, and thanks for sharing some of what you're doing with the hootfish bit, because it's all about knowing how to identify those signals.
You're absolutely right.
You know, it's not too bad. So, that said, how are you helping your customers get that education today? What I've noticed, and I'd love to get your feedback on, is, you know, people treat it like a check on the box exercise. Hey, I need to go get some certification, let's say a SOC 2, because that allows me to do business with other customers. And security awareness and training is a part of that. Then it starts to become this checkbox exercise. And so, how do you get out there to your other customers and, more proactively do that positive reinforcement, which would actually stick?
Yeah. This is the absolute underlying problem we face in cybersecurity today. When you use methods that punish and shame users for failing a phishing test, it's a requirement if you go for cyber insurance, if you go for SOC 2 or SSAE or maybe CMMC, any of the cybersecurity certifications, they have a training component for employees. But they all fail to say how much training is enough, how much participation in the training qualifies, and that's where we fall down on our swords, because when it's a checkbox exercise, I can show you companies who get to 25%, completion rates or compliance rates, and they think that's enough. Reality is in a breach where the insurance underwriter says, do you train your staff? And you said yes, and then you can only show 25% compliance. Well, you're not going to get a full payment back for your insurance coverage. That checkbox exercise is insufficient. You need to get up above 80% or more to prevent the ability to allow yourself the ability to be reimbursed in a breach. But more important than all of that, the negative punishment and shame-based outcomes have a very insidious problem underneath the surface. I'll start with people because the other analogy is, I'll give another analogy if we need it, but people give up responsibility when they've been punished for making mistakes. I've talked to brilliant, smart individuals who are really good at their field of study, who say, I clicked on one too many fake email phishing tests, so now I don't make any mistakes because I forward everything to my IT department. I've given up trying to understand a legitimate email request against a illegitimate click this link request. And so anything that seems off, I just forward to IT. And that's the unfortunate common denominator that we see across the industry today, is that individual employees are abdicating responsibility. They have apathy when it comes to learning those little modicums of knowledge to be more secure, efficient, and safe online,
And if I may
confident.
chime in real quick, it's not just a work thing. It's happening on your phone, on your WhatsApp, these other applications you use. Over to you.
Absolutely. I mean, I get I get a WhatsApp and a text message almost every other day saying, "We have a job for you." And I know it's a precursor to, "We need to get your social insurance so we can do a background check," or "We need you to pay just 10% of your background check fees so that we can run this, because we have this job that we're offering you double the going rate for," which, oh my God, you are going to pay me that much for this? Oh my gosh, I love it. No, it's a ruse. They're just financial scams that come in through those different applications. And we can teach you at CyberHoot all about that, from financial scams where you sell something on Facebook Marketplace and someone sends you $300 for a $100 item, and then they go, "Oops, can you send me 200 back because I overpaid?" No, because I'm never going to get the $100, let alone the 300. You didn't overpay. You used a fake credit card or what have you. So financial scams, romance scams, those same sweatshops are trying to get people to fall in love with fake identities in romance pages. And then a tragedy strikes, a health scare or a car accident or, any number of things. And suddenly you have to send your loved one $1,000, only it's not your loved one. It's a fake, account on a romance website. So we do teach all those things at CyberHoop. But to an earlier point, you did raise this. It can get very dark and foreboding in these conversations, but I'm very optimistic. We are not trying to make rocket scientists here. We're trying to give you just a tiny bit of education and have you apply what most people have is very healthy common sense. And when you combine those things, you can really protect yourself amazingly well. So I'm very optimistic that we are moving closer and closer to the day where we have, herd immunity from these things, because everybody knows what social engineering is and everyone knows what smishing and vishing and quishing and vishing are, and they don't fall for it anymore. And the cybercrime rates will go down and they'll have to get more sophisticated. Yeah, sure. But at least we're taking the lowest common denominator off the table of hacking humans to break into companies and extort them for money.
Yeah. And so with CyberHoot,
Mhm.
you've obviously taken a very positive reinforcement, coaching first approach. Are there still specific habits that are hard to shift from your perspective?
Well, I think that there's just cybersecurity, I've said it before, is things you don't know, you don't know. And if you go back, take an analogy, password hygiene. In 2003, National Institute of Standards and Technology said, here's what you all should do and must do with passwords. You need to have 9-character passwords that are complex, uppercase, lowercase, special characters and numbers in every single one of them, and you need to change them every 90 days. That's what a mathematician tells us is the most difficult to brute force. So therefore, all of you go adopt this. Fast forward to 2017, and they finally said, you know what? That's a really bad bit of advice. When we make people do that, they cheat. They reuse passwords. They put, -JAN for the password, suffix after they change their password because they can't remember any other way their passwords. And, this is before a lot of users adopted password managers. The point is, if you take the human condition and the ability of our minds to memorize these passwords and change them every 90 days out of the advice equation and just do a unilateral decision, mathematically speaking, this is the most difficult password, then you miss out on a multidisciplinary approach that works out to better behaviors, better security, better all around protection. And that's what we've done in cybersecurity around education. There's been a huge focus there's a lot of pushback to my company using a positive reinforcement approach, a gamification approach. There's pushback because everyone wants to run the fake email gotcha tests. IT teams want to justify their existence by running a test before they've done any training with their staff to get this baseline. That's like saying, hey, Parth, you're in my genetics class this semester. For the next 4 months, I'm going to teach you all about genetics. But today, put your textbook away. I hope you didn't read any of it because I want to test you on what little you know about genetics. I want to put you through our final exam today and fail you because you won't know any of the answers. And then towards the end of the semester, when you've gained those answers, I'll look like a hero as a teacher or as an IT team because I'll show the improvement from this no knowledge of genetics to this high knowledge of genetics based on what we taught you over the semester. That's what the cyber insurance teams of the world are doing. They're running baseline fake email phishing tests, failing so many people who then get upset about it and give up trying to learn it, so they don't engage. And we wonder, why do we have such low participation in awareness training? But if we started from a position of positive reinforcement of good behaviors, hey, Parth, when you get an email, there are 7 questions you can ask. Is the sender who they say they are? Is that a legitimate sender domain for Netflix? Is the subject, does it have any spelling mistakes or artificial urgency or emotionality that we could identify? Is the greeting Dear Parth, or is it valued customer, a generic greeting? Is there spelling, punctuation, and grammar mistakes? Is there urgent and emotionality built into the body of that message? What do the links to third-party websites look like when you go to log in or look at login links that are in the body of the email? What's the attachment? Is there an attachment? What's the extension on that attachment? If you know what those 7 things are and how to spot indicators of a phishing attack there, you're 90% of the way there. There is that 10% of business email compromise where your common sense tells you, this person never sends me invoices. Why did I get an invoice from them today? That doesn't make sense. Let me give him a call. Yeah, John, you sent me an invoice. And John responds, don't open it. I've been breached. My account's spewing out emails with invoices. I can't stop it. Okay, well, I didn't open it. I'm fine. I deleted it. Thought you should know.
On that last one, I do want to point out, a lot of times it happens to us when you're talking to someone and you get a message, you're like, wrong person, question mark. It's that same instinct, right? Hey, this is not normal. And I think there's a lot of just trusting your gut. And hey, this doesn't seem right.
But your gut's right more often when you
Yep.
have a little modicum of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome. You, you know, so when you're working with your customers, you start with the education piece, but then is there a way for them to measure?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we want you to run a year's worth of hootfish on a monthly basis. That's that interactive forced interactivity, right? You can't finish the assignment without choosing safe or unsafe on those 7 indicators across 12 different messages, of course, across the course of a year. And then at the end of the year semester, imagining the school analogy, we run a fake email phishing test with the vendor. Like, you can run it in the CyberHoot platform that sends what looks like a legitimate email from a Microsoft or a bank or whatever, and it measures the knowledge and awareness and care those users that have been trained with the positive reinforcement for 12 months. That's a lot of muscle memory that's been built up to apply to emails. And literally, people go from 2-3 minutes of trying to go through a hootfish down to 30 seconds or less. Like, oh, I know how to do this. Safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe, submit, done. 100%, good. But that's muscle memory that takes that stressful sweating it out on this email for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 100 times a day to, like, I know 2 or 3 things that I can always go to and identify a phishing attack. And if there's a gut instinct that something else is wrong, I will call the person. That's powerful. And so then we measure after a year with a fake gotcha email. How did everybody do? You should have almost no clicks. I have many companies that get 0 clicks because their users are so attuned to phishing that it's not a problem anymore.
That's amazing. So it's almost like there's these flashcards that help you reinforce the studying. And so come the day when you get these random tests, they're pop quizzes, I guess.
Yes,
Like, hey, I know that this is bad. Then that's you've addressed it at the root cause. What of the seven things do you not understand? And a little bit of reinforcement obviously goes a long way. That's
it
fantastic.
does. And we give certificates of completion to users that they like to post on their cubicle walls, but those come with 15 minutes of CEC credits, continuing education credits. So if you're in law or medicine or finance, you have to maintain your certification, you have to do 5 to 10 hours of training every year. We give you 50 minutes per exercise. If you do 12 videos, 12 hootfish, that's 24. That's 6 hours right there. You might be done if it's five, your annual training requirements. And many times the industries recognize cybersecurity training as qualifying towards the CECs that you might need. But that's a benefit, right? That's another reward for you just doing your homework, and you use the flashcard analogy. I love that because flashcards is how I got through university. I had to put all the facts on these pieces of paper and then get quizzed on them by my roommate and such. That's exactly what we do. And we practice it so it becomes automatic in the end users.
That's amazing. And so, from your perspective, with the clients that you work with, has it primarily been as a part of some certification, or are these companies that are actually very conscious about the current landscape and want to preemptively start to train their staff?
Years ago, it was part of a reaction. I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago was a reaction. We had a close call or we had a breach and we just want everybody to be trained up on it. So that's about 5, 7, 10 years ago. That's what brought companies to us to train. 5 years ago, it started to change. Today, it's because people recognize that there is this huge third largest economy in the world. It's only a matter of time, or we've had so many close calls, or we've had a breach in the last 3 years. This is the best way to go about doing it. If you go to Reddit and you search for SATs, positive reinforcement, or if you go to ChatGPT or any of the AI tools out there and you ask for a positive reinforcement approach to phishing training, it's going to spit out CyberHoot. Reddit will say CyberHoot. We have a lot of traction in these places where people do their homework to find an LMS vendor or an SAT vendor, LMS learning management system. And so, we provide video trainings on top of these hootfish exercises, and those videos cover the phishing attacks, the financial fraud attacks, the session token theft attacks, the VPN attacks, the Wi-Fi attacks, all the other gamut of threats that we all face are covered in those videos with a little quiz. So we're constantly bringing people's knowledge up to par with the latest and greatest threats they face. Next year, we're very proud of a video we have for next year on AI deepfakes. And what we recommend in that is that your financial officers in your company establish a safe word with your leadership team that is not communicated in any email systems anywhere. Because one day your CTO is going to call your CFO, but it's not the CTO. And the CFO is going to get the request. Hey, John, it's Craig. I'm the chief technology officer here. I need you to wire money for this big purchase we were making. Well, you don't know about that purchase? Oh, we were doing it. We've been talking to the CEO all month long. And if we sign today and pay today, we get the special discount rate. You'd be doing me a solid if you can just wire this money. I'll send you an email with the details, right? But it's not Craig and he's not the CTO. It's someone who watched a podcast, recorded my voice and turned it into a deep fake where in real time they're talking to the the CFO. So all the CFO has to do is say, okay, Craig, what's our safe word? Okay. But it also works personally in families, right? When your grandmother gets a phone call and says, hey, Grandma, it's Parth. I've been in an accident. I need $2,000 to get my car out. Don't tell mom and dad. I really need you to help me out here. Keep it, mom. Keep it quiet. Oh, okay, Parth. I know you're a good kid. You're doing good things. I'll pay for you, but it's not Parth. It's a fake. So grandma needs to say, Parth, what's our family safe word? Do you have one for your family? We have one at CyberHoot, and we have one in our family. Because my mom, I tell you what, she still thinks she has to pay the toll violation. She's got a text message, but I drove that road, Craig. I got to pay this. I don't want to be in trouble with the law. It's not a real toll violation, Mom. You don't pay it. I know you tell me there's these scams and things, but I drove that road. I was driving there. Elder financial abuse is rampant, talking millions of dollars, billions, really.
Yeah. One of my family members once had a hack and they'd lost some money. And they're like, man, I can't remember these passwords. I'm like, tell me about like any friends you made in the past year. And, you start talking. I'm like, can you tell me any of their phone numbers? He's like, can't. I'm like, do you remember like your best friend's phone number from 30 years ago? He's like, yeah. I was like, back then you had to memorize phone numbers because you had to plug it into a landline. So you memorize this. But now, thanks to your smartphone, you don't have to think about it.
Right.
And like passwords were no different. Right? Where now you don't have like try to remember every password. Remember one and use
That's
a
right.
password manager. There's little things that actually save us so much time. And, even with the elderly, it's often like, hey, this is supposed to make your life easier, not harder.
Right, Parth.
But there's
You're
this
absolutely right.
resistance, there's a resistance to change.
Well, we fear what we don't know or understand. And that's why so
That's
many
true.
people are afraid of AI. You talk about your podcast. I was on a phone call this morning at 9 a.m. One of my clients is in a panic. One of my customers is going to adopt AI tools, and I don't think they should. And they're a financial firm. They have social security numbers, and the AI is going to share that with the world. I dig into it. No, it's not. It's a private LLM. It's on-prem. It's not going to do anything except confirm signatures on whatever form that says I authorize the accounting firm to submit my taxes electronically, and here's my digital signature. Because they have a hard time collecting signatures on submitting taxes, believe it or not. Some are emailed in and some are mailed in the post mail, some are done online, and they can't collect all that and make sure they follow. Everybody
But
is
AI
given
use
permission.
case.
AI just scans all three things and says yes or no, this can be filed. It's a great use case, but only if the LLM is a private LLM on-prem and it doesn't talk out to the cloud, because yes, that data is toxic and dangerous and targeted. So your vendor who goes and supports that LLM, they should not be granted access, but under absolute worst case duress scenarios. And even then with a screen share that you monitor what they do while they're fixing something, because they could be sucking that data out. Or worse, it could be a hacker pretending to be the vendor saying, oh, we need to do an update. Things are broken. Let me fix it. So yeah, you've got to build some things around it. But I did have a thought, Parth, about going back on that password comment you said. A password manager is not enough today. And here's why. Yes, you need unique, long, and strong passwords. 15 character is today's best practice. 15 character passwords. They don't have to be XQ exclamation mark 15 characters. It can be a nonsensical passphrase, or it could be generated by the password manager. In the perfect world, let the password manager generate it because you don't have to know any of your passwords. But every online account you have, if it has any value to you at all, needs to be paired with multi-factor. And the best multi-factor today is a passkey. Passkeys are one-to-one relationships. That website to my computer,
Mm.
and yes, 1Password and other password managers can collect that passkey and share it to your other devices so that you can log in from your phone to that website, that one website. You can log in here to that one website. But if that website is breached, they can't use that for jack shit, pardon my French. You can't use it anywhere else. Whereas your password, even if it's long and strong, but not unique, they could replay that in other places. So passkeys are like multi-factor on steroids. Multi-factor is your last line of defense to a reused password that's been breached elsewhere. And lastly, not all multi-factor is the same. SMS is, if that's all you got, it's better than nothing. But you should be using an authenticator app on your mobile device. Use an authenticator app, or better than that, for your real like financial transactions, get yourself one of these guys, a YubiKey. This is a cryptographic hash that I have to have this to do financial transfers over a certain amount in my bank. And what a godsend that is. With, every day CyberHoot gets called in to do forensics and investigate incidents on thousands of dollars being wired to the wrong place. How did this happen? And we go piece it together, and it's always human error and a lack of MFA. And suddenly people are out thousands of dollars. When it comes to passwords, if you have a password manager but you're not using MFA, multi-factor authentication, something you know, something you are, or something you have. Those are the three factors that typically get used in MFA. You have to use two of them. That's your get out of jail free card when someone finally guesses your password, right? Or steals it from a website where you happen to be reusing it. So that's the second leading cause of breaches. When you look at the Verizon Data Breach Report, an annual report for 25 years, they've released this to say, how are companies getting breached? How is data being lost? How are financials being stolen by hackers? It's always human error tied to phishing, number one, password hygiene, number two. And then a distant third is unpatched systems. Yes, you have to patch your systems. Yes, you can't ignore that. And as we tamp down on phishing and password hygiene, more and more hackers will turn to breaking in with 0 days. And we've seen a lot of that actually on SSL VPNs recently. There's a huge problem with SSL VPNs, secure sockets layer, virtual private networks, for those that might not know.
Well, Craig, this has been just awesome. Thanks for sharing those insights. Fun question for you. If you had a wand,
Mhm.
what would you fix for your clients?
I used to say my favorite answer was always adopt a password manager because that even tells you when your passwords are weak and gives you feedback. But I don't think that's it anymore. I think humans are still and always will be the weakest link. And if I had a magic wand, it would be to create that little database repository in every single human brain out there that says, this could be a social engineering attack. How do I make sure it isn't? And teaching you in that same database, here are the questions to ask. And when you still have a gut instinct, something's wrong, and all the questions are right, call the person. And don't email them back and say, hey, is this really Parth Shah? Because you sent me this invoice and I never get invoices from you. And then here's the really AI generated, really insightful, yeah, Craig, we're going to go to a conference together next week, and I got you a ticket, and here's why I bought it for you, because it was 50% off, and I'm just going to comp it to you, but if you want, you can pay me the 50%, whatever the case may be. Come up with some really believable reason you want to pay that invoice. No, because it's still the hacker behind the keyboard. You need to pick up the phone and talk to Parth on the phone on his known good number. There's so many things. So anyways, that's what I would wish for.
Thanks, Craig. Honestly, I feel like not only do you make a lot of this educational material, but you're a very good teacher. And thanks for sharing your insights and kind of simplifying a lot of concepts that are sometimes just overcomplicated in people's minds, but actually are just a few modicums of simple things you need to do to be safe out there.
You made it easy to talk about, Parth. You're a fantastic interviewer. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig. And so if our listeners want to learn more about CyberHoot,
Yes?
where should they go?
So you can email sales@cyberhoot.com. We'll get you a demo scheduled or answer your questions on pricing. If you want to go and look at it yourself directly, you can go to cyberhoot.com. And our autopilot program, it has so much automation in it. It makes it very, very easy to roll out. Literally, you can onboard in 30 minutes or less and be up and running, have all your users getting automated training. And you never have to go log it again. It just runs itself for years on end. We do the hard work of building the videos each year on the 12 different topics and making sure you get those hootfish exercises to practice the muscle memory. You have the option of throwing a governance policy in front of your employees for them to sign off on with a legally binding signature. All of these different parts of a robust cybersecurity program are baked right into CyberHoot for the one price we charge. You can also reach out to, as I said, sales@cyberhoot.com. Oh, this was my thought. We will give a discount to anyone that registers with the referral code of Cyber Ahead with AI. That's your podcast name, correct? So if
Yes.
you say, how did you hear about CyberHoot when you're registering for your business and you put in Cyber Ahead with AI, we'll give you 20% off for an entire year of your pricing. It's an automatic discount we'll apply.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Craig, for that information. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in to another episode with Cyber Ahead with AI. Talk to you soon.